all things for the Bears have been assumed to be on Caleb Williams, and they certainly will be tomorrow, but he is going to do his due diligence, and he should. So now that the pro stuff has largely passed with free agency and Justin Fields has been traded, and it is abundantly clear that there will be a rookie quarterback in, now's a really good time for you and I, between now and April 25th, to really dig into the draft portion of these poll positions and start focusing on rookies. So we figured today, let's talk through the exercise of, hey, what if he doesn't love Caleb and he likes someone else more?
Yeah, and this is where you start to get into making sure the process is sound. We're all familiar with the process not being sound by Ryan Pace, who did not end up doing the deep dives and the long interviews with other prospects because he fell in love with Mitch and was just like, I'm done. Okay, there we go. So I am still very much of the mind that I want Ryan Poles to have a good long interview with Drake May and with Jayden Daniels at a minimum. And if they decide looking that, you know what, I should also do one with J.J. McCarthy, and I should also do one with Bo Nix or with Michael Penix, I'm cool with that. But at a minimum, if he doesn't do a deep dive... They won't do that. At a minimum, if he doesn't do a deep dive with all three of those guys, I will be upset at the process because it's just time and you have the opportunity to learn from it, even if you're feeling great about your guy.
So I agree with you. Like, on the surface, I agree with you. The only big difference, and this is just something that I don't think we can know, is not the will it offend Caleb Williams part, but if he's looked at it on the film and says there is a gap between Caleb Williams and the next guy on film, I know what you're going to say. Well, then do it anyway because they're going to be first-round picks and all that. The difference...
That's not what I was going to say.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But when they had the third pick and they drafted Trubisky second, they could have had to take their second choice at quarterback.
Gotcha.
And they interviewed two of them. Right? They knew that at worst they were going to get an opportunity to draft one of two quarterbacks, Mitch or Mahomes. Because everybody knew Myles Garrett was going one in that draft. They had the third pick. So they visited with the minimum number of quarterbacks that they could have possibly taken. They basically said, based on film, it's either going to be A or B. We will do a deep dive on A or B. We aren't considering C or D based on film. They met with Watson at the Combine. They met with Watson at his pro day, but they didn't do the full deep dive on him because they didn't consider him as good as Trubisky or Mahomes.
I understand. But here's what I was going to say and what I will say now is that there is still so much inexact analysis on college quarterbacks coming into the pros by the very best and smartest evaluators in the business. Bucky Brooks was writing about this today on NFL.com and was tweeting about it. It's really, really good. Bruce Feldman's great book, Quarterback, on the difficulties of scouting. Just last week or 2 weeks ago, we played Kurt Warner's breakdown of Caleb Williams. And he was talking about how college schemes are so simplistic that sometimes you don't know exactly how their skills and reading through the progressions, which is so important, is going to translate. That inexact science demands that even if you've got the number one pick, you better get all three of those guys, in my opinion, in a room and break down their tape with them. What were you thinking? What were you thinking? What were you thinking? And then maybe you can find out stuff. And maybe you'll just end up with Caleb. But look, make yourself smarter in the process as well. It's like when Theo Epstein had the opportunity to interview all sorts of managers or whatever. Interview them, find out how it was done, where they were, see what you're missing in your processes. So there's a lot of reasons to do it for me.
I agree with you because also it'd be interesting to say, who do you like more, Jayden or Drake May? And then 5 years from now, were we right?
There you go. If you're still in the job.
It's just another data point of, did we have the top 3 ranked correctly?
Yes, because not every draft class is going to have one guy and then the gap, and it's going to play out that way. Most of the time, it's not going to play out that way. I mean, we're all looking at the draft class from 2021 that is now just in chaos.
That's the Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields draft.
Okay. But is that so? Other than Trevor, so what am I thinking of? I think of 22, where Zach Wilson is chaos, and
no,
it's 21.
He's
so
21.
Other than Trevor, Mac Jones gone for a 6.
Yeah, Trey Lance,
Justin Fields,
Zach
Trey
Wilson.
Lance, Zach Wilson.
There were 5 first-round pick quarterbacks, and 4 of the 5 are in bad spots, and Trevor Lawrence has been up and down.
So, but who's to say this is not the 2004 draft, when one of them is Eli Manning, and one of them is Phillip Rivers,
and Roethlisberger,
and one of them is Ben Roethlisberger?
Yeah.
Who's to say it's not that draft, or it's not 83, or it's not the year that McNabb went after Achilles Smith and Tim Couch, and Culpepper was 7th or 8th. I mean, it happens all the time, so you better do your due diligence.
I expect him to also. I do not think he will go down to Penix and McCarthy. I do not, and I think that there's a chance that he doesn't go down to Drake May. I think that there's a chance that he will do this based on the film of the guys that he believes could be picked at 1. And if he thinks there is a gap and that Drake May could not be picked at 1, that he won't do it. I think that is in play.
All right, well, here's the thing, though. It has to include May, because what if you find out between now and then something that does freak you the hell out about Caleb Williams? You do find something.
Yeah.
And then maybe you keep it to yourself. Ideally, you keep it to yourself. But maybe you do end up deciding that you should trade down. And how far down are you going to go? You're going to go down to 2. You're going to go down to 3. Then you better know about Drake May. So I don't think that's going to happen. But we have to allow for the possibility of that on the table based on what they find out here. So I'm very firm on needing to talk about needing for them to do the deep dive on all 3 guys.
What if Caleb says he doesn't want you to? Disrespectful.
Then you tell him, Caleb, I'm sorry, but I have this opportunity, and it's not even about whether I'm going to pick them instead of you.
Yeah.
It's about my responsibility to my staff and gaining institutional knowledge about a very difficult thing. You use your line that you just said. Maybe in 5 years, I'm like, some of us are part of different staffs, and this opportunity to know these players who might end up in the NFL is just too valuable. Don't take it personally.
I'm just playing devil's advocate on that.
I understand.
Because he has said he hasn't even considered the possibility that he won't go 1. So, and he's a 40 to 1, 50 to 1 favorite to go 1. I'm just gaming out the entire scenario.
On that, I think you could comfortably push back and say, "Hey, man, this isn't about you. This is just about us and our due diligence."
Hey, one of these guys could be a Viking.
Right.
That's what I would say to him.
Yeah, there you go.
That would be my answer. I would say, hey, one of these guys could be a Viking, and I want to do due diligence on who we're going to be competing against for the next couple of years. That's what I would say. But Jayden Daniels is getting a lot of love. This was on the station, a long time ago. Shane's been hot for this for a long time. It is David Silverstein from Our Lads passionately making the case of Jayden Daniels over Caleb Williams.
Would the Bears be making a mistake if they pick Caleb Williams number 1 overall?
A mistake? No, because I would say let's keep this basic, right? If you bring in Caleb or Jayden to number 1 overall to replace Justin Fields and you go get a pick for him, you're basically, in my opinion, you're not downgrading at quarterback. And what you are doing is you are restarting that rookie contract clock. So in the game of economics, when it comes to building a roster, it's a smart decision to get one of these guys in there. And if your flavor of quarterback is Caleb Williams and you're just getting drawn in by that superstar high upside, it's a really easy decision to make. I mean, if you're going to ask me who has a higher ceiling, it's Caleb Williams. It's a matter of whether he can you put the right pieces around him, similar to what Kansas City did with Patrick Mahomes. And if you remember back in 2017, what did he do? He sat for a year. Right? He didn't play year 1. Is Chicago okay with that? Because I'll tell you what, there is so much Caleb needs to work on in his game, and it's going to be really hard to keep him on the sideline, but I think that would be the right decision, is to keep him on the sideline for at least half the year. But I would even prefer about 2/3 of his rookie season to let him refine some of the points of his game that need work instead of trying to get him to learn on the fly. And, that's where I think there's going to be some confusion in the Chicago market and the pressure that front office feels, because we all know what's going to happen draft night if that name comes across the screen, Jayden Daniels and not Caleb Williams. There's going to be a lot of boo birds, but I'll tell you what, keep the receipts on that because Jayden Daniels is going to be a player.
I like that. I like that.
So is he saying flat out that Jayden is going to be a better player than Caleb? Because I heard him say Caleb's going to have a higher ceiling, but keep the receipts on that. And he thinks Caleb should sit for half the year.
Right. He's basically making the case that it was really damn close and that you could go for Daniels over Caleb. But Dan Orlovsky, this is the last one we'll play here, Dan Orlovsky does think Jayden Daniels is better.
I thought that Caleb Williams was a lock at number one because I thought Drake May would be the guy. I was wrong in that. Jayden Daniels should be the guy. If I were the Chicago Bears right now, I would take Jayden Daniels out of LSU. That is not a knock on Caleb Williams. That is a plus in Jayden Daniels. I think, number one, when you watch all these guys play, the best thrower, the best guy against man coverage, ball placement-wise, is Jayden Daniels.
Wow.
Number two, when we're talking about explosive play, like guys who have to throw the ball downfield, what does it look like? Jayden Daniels throws the ball best downfield. And then number three, who's got the best pocket piece? When I say piece, it's P-E-A-C-E. All these guys are athletic. It's no longer like this plus. Every one of these guys has that attribute. The patience and the peace within the pocket, he's the best at. Candidly, I think when it comes to what guy had the best game, none of these guys' games compared to Jayden Daniels against Florida. If you just watch that player versus the University of Florida, you would go, that's the best player in college football, and he's going to be the guy that transfers the best into the NFL. Caleb Williams is fantastic. I think Jayden Daniels is better.
So that's Dan Orlovsky.
Wow.
And he's very good at his job. Here's where I would just I want to introduce the game theory part of it. So obviously I think that Caleb Williams has been the guy, is the guy, and should be the guy, and ultimately on April 25th will be the guy. But if for some reason Ryan Poles does decide that it's Jayden Daniels or Drake May, they won't be the number one pick. They just won't be. They will trade the draft rights to Caleb Williams.
I agree with that.
And they will pick up because he said Orlovsky in that clip says they should draft Jayden Daniels number one overall.
No.
That won't happen.
They would trade down
They would
to a team that is definitely
taking Caleb. They would do a higher stakes version of exactly what they did last year when they traded down one spot from 9 to 10. They knew that Philly was taking Jalen Carter, and they said, all right, for our troubles of trading down one spot,
right,
give us a future fourth-round pick, wink, wink, nod, nod. We know who you're taking. You know we're not taking him, but just for insurance so that we don't trade him to anybody else.
Sure.
They would, at a minimum, get their second-round pick back from Washington to move down from 1 to 2 and take Jayden Daniels.
I'm sure there are listeners thinking right now, though, if it's Washington at number 2 they're trading, and you're Washington, why would you not just sit there if you don't believe they're trading Caleb Williams? So the Bears would have to convince Washington there was another suitor.
Yeah, New England's on the other line.
Yeah, New England's on the other line.
Minnesota's on the other line.
Minnesota's on the other line. They're offering 11 and 23 and next year's 1 and Jordan Addison.
Yeah.
And we're thinking about just going down to there.
And I don't think that would be difficult.
So they'd have to create
everybody
that.
wants Caleb Williams.
They'd have to create that kind of leverage. But I agree that it wouldn't be it wouldn't be at 1. It would likely be at 2. I mean, the other thing is that you're then also thinking about whatever value you're getting from that trade in addition to the difference between Jayden Daniels and Caleb Williams. I'll tell you personally, I am now comfortable, and I proclaimed this, a month ago, 6 weeks ago. I'm comfortable with Caleb Williams as a pocket passer. I've looked at it and looked at enough people breaking it down that I believe he is good enough at looking through his progressions and playing on schedule to the best of, anyway, my ability and people who are breaking down film's ability that I listen to and trust. I think Drake May is good at that. That's his strength. That's been his strength anyway. I don't know if Jayden Daniels is good enough at that. There's Orlovsky saying he's got the most peace in the pocket, that he's comfortable in his presence there and he'll stay there. But I don't know. So I'm not comfortable weighing in on whether I think that's even plausible. I myself haven't done a deep enough dive on these guys as pocket passers. I feel like I have on Caleb, but not the other two.
So We'll do deep dives on Daniels by himself and Drake May by himself.
They deserve it. They deserve it.
Right now, this is about the concept of how Poles would handle what if it's not Caleb. I think he would trade and get more draft assets. But the other thing is, you always call it soft factors. They're human beings. This isn't a simulation. It's why I always pushed back, even though Olin Kreutz and Kyle Long and guys like that had floated it, and they've been in locker rooms as players, and I obviously had not. The idea that I was just like, I don't think as human beings it's tenable to have put Justin Fields and Caleb Williams in the same locker room, and ultimately they didn't. But in a Madden simulation, you could do it. In the real world, I don't think you can.
Right.
Can Ryan Poles, he's a human being with a family who got his first job as a GM, can he pass on CJ Stroud and pass on Caleb Williams? I would say no. Like, I just that I'm not saying that if he firmly believes it and the film says it and he's got the consensus of the scouting department in the room and George McCaskey signs off on it, okay. But if you're the guy that did that, that is it's so ballsy. It's so smug. It's so smartest guy in the room. It's so counterculture. I have a very hard time believing that he could do it. And it's not a Ryan Poles thing. I have a very hard time believing that anybody could do it.
I don't know how much he kicks himself about CJ Stroud.
I'm not even saying that he does or that he should. I'm just saying if in back-to-back drafts,
yeah,
but
I don't know. I'd be interested, because if you're him, you're trading out of that one because you're giving Justin a year. You're giving it the chance that you gave it, and Stroud wasn't the consensus one. Obviously, didn't even go one. So I don't know that he would add all those up. I think not taking a quarterback at all would, like not doing it 2 years in a row, as you've talked about.
Yeah, well, that's
would
off the
feel
table,
crazy,
obviously.
and now that's off the table. But choosing the different guy, yeah, it would be bold. It would be bold, but I don't know if it would be as difficult to live with.
Trading out of number 1 overall
twice
to not take the top consensus QB, I think it'd be very hard to do.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying impossible. And it's not a Ryan Poles point. I would say the same thing about any general manager.
Yeah.
I think it would be very, very difficult to do.
Let me say this. For Bears fans, for the ones who especially perhaps have sold themselves or been sold by us or others that Caleb is just too good, you can't pass up this generational prospect and all of that. If then they had to deal with Justin Fields gone and not Caleb Williams, people would be freaking out, man.
I count me among them.
There'd be a lot of people freaking out.
And I've watched a decent amount of Jayden Daniels. I'm not saying he isn't impressive. He is. I am shocked that people think that he looks more impressive than Caleb Williams individually. He's also throwing to 2 dudes who are going to be picked in the top 15 of this draft.
Yeah.
So I have a hard time of separating that.
Ryan Thomas, we'll see.
I mean,
top 20 maybe.
Fast guy with all those touchdowns who averaged 17 yards a catch in college.
I've seen him. I looked at a bunch of mocks today. He's fourth. He's the 4th wide receiver off the board in just about every mock.
So
it wouldn't be for me.
Fine. Top 20.
Yeah.
He's going to.
First round. There's going to be a lot of wide receivers.
He threw to a top 10 pick and a top 20 pick. Right? Is that more conservative
sure.
as an estimate?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he has as big of an arm. So that'd be real. It'd be a real tough sell job for me to say that you can get there with Jayden Daniels over Caleb Williams. It'd be real tough.
Well, we'll do a Jayden Daniels deep dive so we can feel like we're doing our due diligence as we stand in Ryan Poles' position every day at 3. And let's do a Drake May one too, because I really am firm that they should be doing a deep dive on all 3 of those guys just to be safe. What if Caleb tells you, you know what, I want to go be a a mushroom farmer
He
and a
won't.
team handball player.
He's not going
Jake
to.
Plummer did it.
He's
Jake
not going
Plummer
to do
left
that.
the NFL to go play team handball and farm mushrooms.
Yeah, he says
You don't know.
It's not going to happen.
Right?
That is not going to happen.
He could quit to go smoke dope with Ricky Williams. We don't know.
He says he wants to be great. He
Oh.
wants to be immortal. He's
I
been
know.
doing this his entire life.
A lot of time between now and April.
Not that much time.
Actually, not that much.
There's not that much time. We got the one bathroom Airbnb.
It's not that busy, man.
Yeah,
It's not that busy.